You wake up some mornings and the weight of life feels like it's sitting on your chest. You look around and maybe the bills are piling up, the job isn't fulfilling, the relationships are strained, and the reflection in the mirror looks a little more tired than inspired. And it's tempting in those quiet, lonely moments to believe that this is just who you are now. But don't buy into that lie, because where you are is not who you are. What you've been through may explain your journey, but it doesn't get to define your identity. Too many people confuse their condition with their character. They think just because they've failed, they're failures. Just because they were abandoned, they're unlovable. Just because they've struggled, they must be weak. That's not truth. That's a trap. Let me tell you something. There's a man I remember who came up from nothing. I mean, literally nothing. Born on the floor of an abandoned building, labeled as educably mentally retarded in school, told by teachers he'd never amount to anything. If that man had accepted the labels, if he had looked around and said, "This is just my life," he'd still be sweeping floors and hiding from his potential. But he didn't. He refused. He dug deeper. And when the world said, "This is who you are," he answered back, "No, that's where I started. That's not where I'll stay." See, the moment you allow your circumstances to dictate your self-worth, you've surrendered the power of choice. And the truth is, every day you get to choose again. Maybe yesterday broke you. Maybe last week felt like a loss, but today you can rise. You are not the job that fired you. You are not the person who walked away. You are not the mistake you made when you were tired and afraid. You are not what went wrong. You are what can go right. You are a possibility walking in shoes. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard to believe in yourself when you've been overlooked, underestimated, and worn down. But that's when the belief matters the most. Anybody can believe when things are easy. Champions believe when the odds are stacked. And you've been through too much to throw in the towel now. You didn't make it this far just to fold. There's still more in you, more to give, more to become. So the next time your situation whispers that you're not enough, don't argue. Just show it what enough looks like. The next time someone doubts you, don't fight back. Just keep showing up, keep working, keep improving. You don't owe the world an explanation, only an example. You are not finished yet. You are not defeated. You are not your past. You are becoming something new, something unshakable, something undeniable. This is your reminder. Your situation is not your identity. Your current condition is just that, current. And if you've still got breath, then you've still got fight. You can rebuild, you can climb again. There comes a point where the world tries to box you in. People will look at you through the narrow lens of your past, your mistakes, your upbringing, or the things you lack. And they'll try to tell you what you can't be, what you can't do, and where you don't belong. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them. You'll begin to shrink your vision to fit the limitations of people who never took the time to understand your fire. But you weren't born to be defined by somebody else's shallow understanding of your worth. You were born with purpose. You were born with the ability to rise. When he was in school, they put him in the back of the class. They told him he couldn't learn like the other kids, called him slow. They made him feel like the world had already decided he wasn't going to make it. And when you're young and they tell you that enough times, it can start to feel like truth. But he had a hunger, not just to prove others wrong, but to prove to himself that there was more inside of him than anybody else could see. And that's where real change begins. Not with applause, not with recognition, but with a quiet, stubborn decision deep in your soul that says, I am not who they think I am. I am more. You may not have the perfect resume. You may not have a degree from the best university. You may not come from a family with money or status. But if you've got the will to grow, if you've got the courage to try, if you've got even a spark of belief left in you, you are already dangerous to every limitation standing in your way. Because nobody can stop a person who's decided that their life won't be governed by excuses or opinions. You can go back to school. You can start the business. You can take the stage. You can build the body. You can change your mind. And when you do, you begin to rewrite your story, not for others, but for yourself. Most people spend their lives living down to what others said they'd never be. But the moment you stop asking for permission to be great, you stop moving with freedom. You stop tiptoeing. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining your dream to people who wouldn't understand it, even if you drew them a map. You've got to move like your life depends on it, because it does. You've got to speak with conviction, walk with intent, and act like the future is already yours. Because if you don't, nobody else will. And I'll tell you something, the people who once overlooked you will come back around. They'll say they always believed in you, that they knew you had something. But by then, you won't need their validation, because by then your actions will have already spoken. You will have proven not just to them, but to yourself, that who you were is not who you are, and who you are is just the beginning of who you're becoming. Don't confuse where you are with where you're going. Your story is still unfolding. Keep going, keep building, keep fighting. It's one thing to be tired. That's human, that's natural. But it's another thing entirely to be tired and still keep going. To drag yourself forward when everything in you says quit, when the progress feels slow, when the noise in your head gets loud, and when your reality doesn't yet match the vision in your heart. That's when the decision gets made. Not the loud, dramatic kind. No, I'm talking about the quiet choice, the one you make when no one's watching, when the lights are off and the encouragement isn't there. That's where greatness is carved, out of silence, out of struggle, out of persistence. He didn't have the tools others had, no head start, no guiding hand, just a burning desire to climb, to reach, to become something more than his beginning. Doors didn't open for him. He had to kick them open. And when the world didn't give him a seat at the table, he built his own. But do you think that was easy? There were days he couldn't see the progress, days when every rejection felt like a full stop, nights when doubt crept in and whispered, maybe they're right, maybe you really aren't enough. But he didn't surrender to it. He used it. That rejection, it became fuel. That doubt, it became drive. And that's the difference. He didn't wait to feel ready. He just refused to give up. You've got to stop looking for proof before you move. Life doesn't hand out guarantees. And most of the time, it won't make sense while you're in the middle of it. You won't always see the outcome, and that's okay. It's not your job to see the finish line. It's your job to keep walking. And if you wait for certainty, if you wait for permission, if you wait until you feel completely prepared, you'll be stuck right where you are years from now, wondering what could have happened if only you had tried. I've seen too many people bury their potential under fear. They want the dream, but they hesitate. They question everything they bring to the table. They let one setback convince them the mountain is too steep. But you are not here to play small. You're not here to second guess your voice, your gifts, your calling. You were not placed in this life just to survive. You're here to expand, to build, to rise, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because every great story has a chapter that looked like failure before the breakthrough showed up. You may not feel strong right now. That's fine. Strength doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like getting out of bed anyway, like showing up to the gym even when no one's watching, like making one more call, writing one more line, taking one more step when you'd rather sit down. That's strength, and that's what builds the life you're after. Don't let today's hardship fool you into thinking you're not meant for more. The storm you're walking through might just be the test that qualifies you for the next level. So, breathe deep, plant your feet, square your shoulders. The struggle is real, but so is your ability to overcome it. You've come too far to let a rough patch define the journey. You've survived storms before, and this time is no different. Don't pause. Don't retreat. There's a voice that shows up every time you try to rise. It doesn't yell, it whispers. It says, "You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. What if you fail again?" And if you listen long enough, you start to shrink your own effort. That voice, that hesitation, isn't there to help you, it's there to keep you stuck. Because here's what it knows. Once you get serious, once you get consistent, once you stop negotiating with you don't have to feel inspired every day to take action. That's a trap most people fall into. They wait to be motivated before they move. But motivation is a luxury. Discipline, that's your foundation. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you've committed to. And commitment doesn't ask you if you're tired, doesn't check if you're in the mood. It doesn't care about the weather, the traffic, or your aching back. It just shows up. He used to stand backstage, nervous, unsure, trembling with fear before his turn to speak. Thoughts raced through his head. What if I mess up? What if I forget my lines? What if they laugh at me? But he walked out there anyway, not because he wasn't afraid, but because he made a decision. He would not let emotion make decisions for his future. The feeling didn't disappear, but he learned to move with it. That's what separates the doers from the dreamers. Dreamers wait to feel confident. Doers take the first step, even while their knees are shaking. Your habits are building your future, whether you like it or not. Every time you press snooze, you're casting a vote for who you'll be tomorrow. Every time you say, "I'll start next week," you're delaying the version of you that's been trying to break through for years. But the flip side is just as powerful. Every time you say yes when it's inconvenient, every time you show up when it's uncomfortable, every time you act when no one is clapping, that's the version of you that wins. You have to become a person who leads themselves, who doesn't need to be pushed, who doesn't wait for someone to rescue them from their own indifference. The world has enough people waiting for a sign. Be the person who becomes the sign. You're not going to feel like it every morning. That's reality. But you still get to choose. You still get to move. And if you do, day after day, it compounds. Quietly, silently, until one day, the same people who said you've changed will be the ones asking, "How did you do it?" That's when you'll know it wasn't magic. It wasn't talent. It wasn't perfect timing. It was the small things done consistently. It was a refusal to make decisions based on temporary emotions. It was the choice to keep going when it would have been easier to stop. That's the mindset that rewrites stories. That's the mindset that creates impact. That's the mindset that separates the ones who almost made it from the ones who did. You can train that mindset. You can build that habit. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to keep showing up. Because in the end, it's not about how fast you move. It's about how long you refuse to quit. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be flashy. You just need to be unshakable. There's something that happens when you start growing. When you begin stepping into your potential, people notice. But not everyone celebrates it. Some will question your motives. Others will doubt your ability. And some will just hope you fail. Not because of who you are, but because your progress makes them uncomfortable with their own stagnation. That's the truth. People don't always tell you. When you change, it forces others to face the fact that they, and most won't say it out loud, but they'd rather you shrink than rise. He didn't come from applause. He came from rejection. His early speeches were filled with stutters, awkward pauses, shaky hands. People doubted him, laughed at him. Some even walked out on him, but he kept going. He didn't argue with the ones who said he wouldn't make it. He outworked them. He didn't beg for approval. He earned respect. And that's something you've got to learn. You don't owe anyone a performance just to validate your dream. Let them doubt. Let them talk. Let them sit on the sidelines with their opinions. But you keep building. There's no greater silence than the one created by progress. When you keep showing up, when you keep winning quietly, when the people who used to mock you can't even get close to your level anymore. And you didn't do it out of spite. You did it because you finally realized that their voices don't decide your value. You stopped waiting for validation. You stopped needing to be understood, and you started living on purpose. You're not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to walk in it. So let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel you. That's not your weight to carry. Every second spent trying to change someone's opinion of you is time stolen from becoming who you were meant to be. And the truth is, their doubt is often just projection. They couldn't see that level for themselves, so they can't see it for you. But that's not your ceiling to accept. Just because they didn't doesn't mean you can't. And you don't need to be angry. You don't need revenge. You just need results. Let your results do the talking. Let your character speak loudest. The real ones will notice, the rest won't matter. Because when you move with integrity, when you keep your eyes on your path and your heart in your work, there's no storm strong enough to shake what you've built from the inside. So if today you feel underestimated, if people are still looking at you through the eyes of your past, if they can't seem to see the version of you that you're becoming, don't try to convince them. Don't break your focus to chase their acceptance. Stay in the work, stay in the fight, stay in your purpose, because the moment you stop for them, you pause your own evolution, and you didn't come this far to stand still. Let them watch. Let them doubt, but you keep climbing, because one day they won't be able to deny what you've built with your own hands, what you've endured, what you've risen from. They won't be able to ignore the glow of someone who refused to quit. At some point, life is going to hit you hard, and I don't mean lightly, I mean right where it hurts. In the moments you least expect, something will come along and knock the wind out of your plans. It could be a phone call that changes everything, a loss that leaves a void, a betrayal that shakes your trust, or a failure that stares you in the face and dares you to try again. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to believe it's over. That maybe life was never meant to work for you, that maybe the mountain is too steep this time, but it's right there in the middle of that pain where the decision has to be made. He knew that feeling well. Lost jobs, lost hope, people who walked away when he needed them most. There were days he didn't think he'd make it through, nights when the silence was too loud, but somehow he kept showing up. Not because it was easy, but because giving up wouldn't have made it any better. He made a decision that no matter what life threw at him, he would not fold. He would not give life the satisfaction of watching him break. And if he was going to fall, he'd fall forward. You see, pain doesn't have to be your prison. It can be your platform. The fire can either consume you or refine you, but that depends on you. Nobody escapes struggle, but some people let it define them, while others let it sharpen them. You've got to decide, will this be the thing that breaks me or builds me? Because when everything's stripped away, all that's left is your will. And if that's still intact, then you've still got a way forward. Life is not a straight line. It doesn't care about your schedule, your plans, or your expectation. It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it's also full of second chances if you're willing to look past the mess. The very thing that seems like your breakdown today could end up being your breakthrough tomorrow, but only if you stay in the fight. Only if you refuse to let a bad chapter ruin the whole book. Sometimes you won't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Sometimes you've just got to keep walking in the dark until your eyes adjust, until your strength kicks in, until your resilience says, I've been here before, I know how to rise. Because you're not weak for feeling pain. You're human. You're not broken for needing time to heal. You're alive. But what matters is that you don't pitch a tent in your suffering. Feel it, but don't live there. Hurt, but don't settle. Cry if you must, but then wash your face and keep moving. The people you admire, the ones who made it through, don't think they didn't get knocked down. They just didn't stay there, and neither should you. You've got what it takes, even if right now you don't feel it. Because strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just getting through the day with your head still up and your heart still open. So when life shows up uninvited, when it pushes you to your edge, you look it in the eye and say, you might slow me down, you might hurt me, but you will not stop me, because you've come too far, endured too much, and grown too strong. This isn't the end. This is where the next chapter begins. And no matter how dark it gets, you can not stop